What's up, you guys? This is Sarah coming at you again for One and Done Weekly. I decided to take you on a walk with me today, so I hope the sound is okay, but we'll see. So last week I talked to you guys about the inner critic and how it can show up for clients, for people who are starting off on a new fitness program, health and fitness program. Today, I want to talk to you about how that pesky critic can show up for people who are actually on their path. They are in the middle of their program and they've had some success. So what that looks like is it'll be, say, a client who or anybody. I mean, I've experienced this too, where you've had some success either with fitness or with your nutritional program. You've lost some weight, or have seen some gains, whatever it is you're doing. And so what the tendency is that I see is whatever that person's perfect day or week or season looked like, they set that up as their end-all be-all standard for what they should achieve all the time. And that's a pretty tough standard. Like an example, a real example from my life is when I was still teaching high school, and this was actually routine for me on spring breaks. On spring break, I wouldn't have any classes or anything I had to do. I was single, and so what would I do? Well, I'd wake up and I'd go running in the mornings. I'd go to a kickboxing class in the afternoon. I might throw in a yoga class here and there, and it was awesome. So I'm not criticizing myself for doing that. When I think about it now, I'm like, man, that's a good week. I'd like to have another week like that. But unfortunately, that was then, right? And doing that now is not going to be as likely for me. So, and you can see how when we go back to how the inner critic shows up in our lives, it takes this standard that's impossible really to achieve all the time, and that becomes our marching orders. And if we don't achieve it, then we failed. And so the reason this is for some people, if they fail to achieve that standard, well, then it becomes easier for them to just fall off the wagon. For other people, they just turn in on themselves. Like, they become very self-critical and like, oh my gosh, you didn't do this thing. You didn't train 12 times a week. They can become depressed about it. And so that is not a recipe for long-term success when you have that inner voice just nagging you with this impossible standard. And so the ultimate challenge of this, of course, as I've already alluded to, is life, right? So life can show up on a day-to-day basis where it's like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym, and no, it turns out I got a phone call and I've got to go do this thing instead. It can happen in a week. Last year, I suffered from a bout of food sickness that, I was laid up for days because I couldn't keep any food down. Or it can actually be a whole season of your life, right? Maybe you've got some big something that's keeping you from hitting those standards that you're trying to hit. And so what do we do with this, right? It's like, is it bad to have these goals? Not at all. Goals are incredible. But the thing that I really want to convey to you today is that when it comes to the game of being in your best body, of being healthy, that is you got to play the long game on that. And so what I discovered as I began to transform myself, and now having successfully transformed and being in my best body, what I discovered was this simple truth: that consistency beats perfection 10 out of 10 times. So 10 out of 10 times, if you can be consistent for long term, that's going to translate into long-term success. Or if you're perfect just that one time, that's great, but that's not going to do much for you, right? And so where that really shows up, you see it in sort of the kind of typical yo-yo dieters, where they might be perfect for whatever their vision of perfect is. They're perfect for a day, 2 days, 3 days, maybe 5 days, maybe 6 days. But then on the 7th day, they just have a blowout, right? And maybe they call it a cheat day. But they, you know, if you spend a day eating like you don't want to live, that's gonna make up for all those days of perfection, right? And so what we're after is not this impossible standard. What we're after is, well, the phrasing we use in our program is floor goals and ceiling goals, where, you know, you've got a high standard, but then you also have a minimum standard, right? We've talked about that, bare ass minimums, right? But that's not where I want this video to go, because we've talked about all of those very practical ways of combating this. I want to give you something today I want to give you a perspective shift that I'm going to invite you to just play with me on, especially if this is really speaking to you and you're like, yeah, I've got high standards, so what? What I'd like to invite you to consider today is, and this will absolutely best be done with pen and paper, I want you to consider, rather than having fitness be your goal, what if you were to make fitness your vehicle? And your next logical question might be, my vehicle for what? What if fitness were your vehicle for living your best life? So rather than being the end all, like, my life is about hitting this fitness goal, my fitness is about living my best life. What would that mean for you as far as your goals day to day, how they adjust, how you roll with the punches that life throws at you? So one example, for me, my fitness is very much about living my best life. I want to be able to get up and move whenever I want to. I want to have fun with family and friends. I want to enjoy everything that life has to offer. I've talked about this before. So that means when I'm laid up in bed sick, rather than trying to get myself out of bed sooner than my body is ready, because that's going to mean longer sickness ultimately, I'm going to give myself the time that I need to recover. And you know, another example of this, like maybe you are a person that has really, really lofty, like awesome goals for your fitness. If you play with this thought experiment, you might find that still adjusts how you approach your goals. So for example, let's say you want to enter a bodybuilding competition. When you're listening to that inner critic, your inner critic is telling you, well, if you want to get as big as you need to get, you better be working out 7 times a week, not a day, maybe a day. Who knows how tough your inner critic is. Whereas after you do this, after you discover, like, wait, what if my fitness is just a vehicle, but I still have this goal of doing this bodybuilding competition? Well, guess what? You want to live your best life? You want to do your absolute best? That means you are absolutely not going to train 7 days a week. You are going to train much less, because you know that for bodybuilding, recovery is just as important as the training. And so you might actually lower the times you train in a week, because you want to live an awesome life. And for you, an awesome life means being able to take part in a bodybuilding competition. You know what I mean? So just something to consider today. Have you named your inner critic yet? I'd love to know if you did. Anyways, I hope this helps. If it resonates, definitely comment below. If you do the activity and you come up with an answer that you'd like to share, I'd love to hear it. So have an awesome day, you guys. We'll talk soon.